Greetings everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Grim Reader. I'm Kathy Grimm, and today I'm going to tell you about my the ranked readings. So last time I told you about 27 through 21 and today it's 20 through 11. And I'm just still it's sinking in as to this idea of me being a slow processor, and so how little I get to compared to a lot of other people in terms of my reading. And I'm of course, on the one hand I'm completely okay with that because it's me. On the other hand, it does sort of give me pause as to how did I even get through my life being such a slow reader. And I guess the answer is I don't know. And I mean, in a way it's perhaps a sign of one of the reasons why I didn't do that well. I mean, but that had more to do with writing, and maybe it had to do with the feeling that I didn't read enough, imposter syndrome. But Happy New Year to us all. And my quota thing is going quite well. I always have like a list of things I need to do every day in terms of reading and one postcard. That's going all quite well. I sort of felt a little bit, even 10 pages of Zola it's fine in a way because I am almost at the end, I can tell. But when I get behind with that, it sort of makes me anxious. And the page a day of the other two, of course I read a little bit more than that, and that's fine, the two big books. Anyway, I should talk about that in a different video, my sort of current reads. And I've started my first new book of the year, which reminds me that I did finish something that's not on the list here. Maybe I'll just talk about it separately if I can remember what I finished reading. Oh yeah, the Josephine Tey, The Man in the Queue. Yes, so in sort of early, from the 50s or something. And I think it's at the bottom of the ones today. It's sort of like the top of, like I talked a lot about the Commonwealth of Thieves last time with, well, not that much, but a little bit about, in terms of my embarrassing personal history, the beginnings of Australia. And it would be kind of around that, where that one was, probably maybe a little bit ahead of it, because it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But I'm going to start with the book that comes in at 20, which seems kind of low, but this is really, my main ranking is how I felt while reading it, like how much fun it was to read. And that's, I think, the reason why it's only at 20. It's Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, which of course is big chunker of an 18th century book. I compare it always to Clarissa, which was my favorite book of, I think, 2023. Or I'll have to check what my favorite books were of the years past. But it was it was number one, and that was a very good year, as I recall. It was competing with the likes of Bleak House and maybe even Anna Karenina, which is pretty amazing. Maybe that was a different year. Anyway, this was not up there with Clarissa, and there's multiple reasons. I think one reason, which I will completely admit to, is the fact that I had read this word for word, and it couldn't help but dragging. And it was also one where I had a quota, because it was sort of a group read, and we had a really good discussion on the Zoom afterwards. And I'm glad that's the only way I got through it. Plus I was reading it with another book that you'll see in the next video. And so that kind of helped me keep at it. And it's almost like this, it's a mountain that you're climbing, and you get to the top and then you're glad to get down. And it's not to say that parts of it weren't very entertaining and funny. See, it's a very funny book. It's a very sort of typical 18th century shenanigans. It's farce. There's mistaken identity. It's very theatrical, and I think that's partly to do with Fielding has a background in theater, I think. And so there's a sort of, it's a comedy in a sense. And I do think that however much, I like funny things, there's a part of me that prefers the not so funny. See, the thing about Clarissa, and I know that most people, or a lot of people, don't like it because it is rather moralistic, and it's like, oh my gosh, that guy is so awful and she's so not awful. But in a way, that melodrama aspect of it, told through the letters, really worked for me. And there's even like the parody of it. Did he write the parody? Oh, maybe he wrote the parody of Pamela, called Shamala. And see, Pamela is Richardson, and then we have Fielding. So it's kind of like they're duking it out in terms of, is he too moralistic? I'll have to do more research on that. Anyway, so yeah, only place number 20 for this. And you know, I think some people probably would like it better than I did, and maybe it would be an easier long read for them. For me, it was a bit of a struggle, but you know, I'm very glad I read it because it is a canonical work of 18th century fiction. I'm not an 18th century, I just don't gravitate towards it as much as the 19th century. Another one that's kind of, is this really only 19? But I think it is. Let me check here because I have to make sure I do have some that I don't have the books. I guess it is. I had this idea of a project to read sort of almost consecutively, you know, all one after the other, Murdoch's novels, because I've always been interested in her, and I've only read one other one. I forget what it's called. And so this was number 19. This is an early Murdoch, and I'm even sort of, do I really want to read more? I mean, I have one other one that I got when I had this phase at some point where I was sort of looking for nice hardback editions of older works. And so this is this one, and I got one other one. It was, I think I've talked about this, so you can go look at my other video where I kind of review this a bit more. It's a bit weird. It's a strange work of this one man coming to talk to people. I think, what's the relationship issue? Is it his mother who's passed away, and then it's his brother, and the strange relatives in this house. It's also kind of theatrical. It had this sort of, they encounter each other, and they're all kind of strange and eccentric, and they're having affairs with each other. And there's a young girl in it too, who's part of the comings and goings of these strange relatives that this guy comes to interact with. It's sort of a house, you know, it's a drama of, a novel of relationships and connections, and not much plot. It's really just these strange interactions of these strange people. And so it was sort of interesting, but it wasn't really a page turner, as I think I said before. So yeah. I'm trying to think, and there was a bit of an interesting ending. You're always sort of wondering the status. Is he the one that was sort of, is the reliable, reasonable person, and the other people are crazy, or is he and there's a sort of power dynamic thing going on with the people and him, and sort of things shift as the novel, and that's what's sort of interesting about it. And it kind of, there's a tiny bit of a connection to Miss Mackintosh, I think. You're always wondering about the status of people's, in terms of their narrative reliability, or what's going on with them in a certain mental way. And so it wasn't bad, but it was a little bit like, okay, whatever, that's fine, move on, as I'm going to right now. The next one I will put a picture in. It's a Trollope, so Anthony Trollope, one of my favorites. He pops up here and there in this list too. And it's Harry Hotspur, a shorter novel by him that I listened to only. I don't think I ever have a copy of that one. And it's only at 18, despite it actually still being quite good for Trollope. And in a way, the listening experience was still quite good and fun. And you kind of get drawn into this drama of this family where the young woman is determined to marry someone who I think is her cousin, and the whole cousin thing is so weird in England and elsewhere, but that's not what's weird about the book. You kind of just get over that, or not. But the father's very against it because he believes firmly that the cousin is a ne'er-do-well, and indeed he is. He really is a ne'er-do-well. He's quite dark. It's a darker novel in general, to the point of it not even having a happy ending, which is interesting for Trollope. And that's kind of, I like that. I like that there's sort of darkness here, but what I didn't like is his portrayal of some characters. Now, he does kind of almost border, for some of his side characters, he borders on the sort of stereotypical cliche, and in this case, it was a Jewish person, and so the anti-Semitism of Trollope, which I think is a thing, and, you know, not the only one for sure in 19th century England, And it was a little bit off-putting, or maybe even more than a little bit off-putting, to the point of, Anthony, what are you doing here? This is just not, we don't like this. And yeah, so that's what pushed it down for me, is that I didn't like the portrayal of that guy. Even some of the other characters, sometimes sometimes his characters, especially the non-main ones, can be a little annoying in their stereotypicalness, is what I would say. But it's still enjoyable, and what's interesting about it is that it's a darker tale and has this sad ending. It's a sad story. It's a tragedy, which is unusual for Trollope. Speaking of sad stories, coming in at number 17, another big book here that I thought I should read and would enjoy, and I really thought I would enjoy it more. Not to say that I didn't. It was quite. I read the whole thing, I think. Did I read it or listen to it? No, I read this. I read it. I did not listen to this. And it's a climate change novel, and I'm remembering now why it's only at 17. So I did think that the writing was super stellar and magnificent, whatever, and people who know me know that that's important for me. It was adequate and quite good. What kind of made it less almost compelling, I guess, is the fact that this is still predicated on a world where who is not in power, and the fact that whose name I will not mention has been in power now for however long, has made our world so strange and terrible in a lot of ways, to the point where the people who are kind of the goings on of the government in here they're not as crazy as reality in a certain sense, even though it's about the government having to deal with worsening climate disasters. And so it's sort of like, in this book, we're still dealing with a normal, quasi-normal world, and how inadequate the response of that normal world is to the awfulness of climate stuff happening. And the descriptions of the worsening climate catastrophes is connected to our characters in the book that we get to know quite well, and some of them are more interesting than others. And in a way, it's another case of I would have liked more of some people and less of others. And there's one of the main characters was a little annoying because they seemed a little unrealistic, as I recall. This has been a while. This is like a mid-year book. And a little bit like, oh, come on. Yeah, I remember. So not all the characters I felt were completely compelling or they suffered a little bit of being implausible. So yeah, there was that too. That's another reason. But the main thing was the fact that this is still kind of supposed to be a normal world where the not normal stuff of climate stuff enters into it, and we're dealing with a world that is completely not normal anyway. And the climate stuff is it's still there, of course, and of course it is. But it's not even on the front as much as it should be, of course. But because of the awfulness of whatever we're dealing with right now, it's like we have to get that under control first, and then I mean, who knows? It's just we're in very strange times, and yeah, who would have known this? It's kind of like too bad for people writing this kind of stuff. It's like it's the danger of writing very topical topics, is that you have to contend with a changing reality. It's an interesting dilemma. So that was number 17. Now we're getting into number 16, which is the Dickens of this year, which was the only Dickens, I guess. Yeah. Tale of Two Cities. So not that high. It is not that good. I mean, it's fine, but it's not like the other Dickens that I like, Bleak House, Nicholas Nickleby, David Copperfield are all great. I think most of the ones I read, even Little Dorrit's better. And I forget the other one that I read. Maybe that's it. This one is a lesser, I don't think it's as good. And it's such a strange novel because like the beginning and the end are so famous. And the beginning opening paragraph, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, is extremely memorable. And as is the ending, which I won't, it is a far, far better world, blah, blah, blah. But it's funny how it's a novel where the beginning and the ending are great, but what's in the middle is no, that's not quite true. There's some good stuff here too, and I'm actually remembering a great scene, the wine drinking scene, the leaked wine on this in the streets scene was very good. Yeah. So I mean, but we're sort of at the middle of the yeah that even for that scene, I'm like, oh, maybe it should be higher. It's funny. No, it's fine to be at 15. It was good, but it was some of the I think the plot was a little bit I don't know. Mm, the woman, the daughter. Yeah, and I did listen to this mainly. I didn't read it, so maybe this is another one that would be better if I read it. I don't know. But yeah, Tale of Two Cities. Have you read it? It makes me, I really, one of the books that's been on my TBR for a long, long time is Les Miserables. I gotta read that. Maybe listen to it. I really want to, because I have a feeling it'll be better than this. I don't know. You tell me longer. We know that it is known that it's longer. Another one that I don't have to show you because it was a pure listen, The Prestige by Christopher Priest, I want to say. I think it's Priest. So that's the novel that I think was made into a fairly famous movie about the two magicians. It's a strange novel, but I actually kind of liked it. It's sort of steampunk and turn of the century, and it involves is it Tesla? This strange machine that is at the center of the magic or the conjuring trick that one of them does, and it's a whole mystery and of how it happens. It's been a long time. It's one of the first reads of last year, and getting to the bottom of what happened to people. And as I recall, it's a frame. There's a frame narrative in the present. More present. Hi, Lily. She's ruining my rug. Don't ruin my new rug that I got. Hi. You gonna give us a visit? Anyway, so that was a good one. I like that one quite a bit, and I kind of would recommend it as a listen if you like sort of steampunky, sort of turn it a little bit gothic, perhaps listens. It was quite well done, and the whole sort of identity. I guess what do I mean when I say steampunk? I mean I think it takes like the main plot stuff takes place in the 19th century, even though it has this frame that's more modern. But it goes back to the end, so the second half of the 19th century. So it evokes things like Jules Verne or even Dr. Jekyll guy, who wrote that. H.G. Wells, yeah. So and the early science fiction type stuff, and I liked it. I thought it was quite good, and I would recommend it. Have you read it? Have you read The Prestige, or have you seen the movie? I was thinking maybe we should watch the movie, but I almost don't want to because I don't want to spoil the book experience. So yeah, another one that apparently, and we have quite a few here next to I don't have. I'll put pictures in. I thought we had a copy of this. It's the Cormac McCarthy of this year, which is All the Pretty Horses, which I liked. I don't know where this fits in. It's a trilogy, right? It's one of three. I like this one. This was a straight up Western. It's not as great as Blood Meridian, but then not many books are, in my opinion. I just think that's amazing. I remember at some point I started the newer ones and I couldn't get into them. For one thing, the setting was more like, it wasn't Western. It wasn't this sort of evoking the West. And so and I was like, oh, this is not typical for Cormac McCarthy. The new ones, I forget what they're called, Stella Maris and the other one. But maybe I'll get back to them one day because, I want to try them maybe. And so, yeah, this is it's kind of a straight up Western. It takes place, it has to do with horses and running away with horses. And then they go into Mexico for a while and they hang out there and they get into this group of three or two. And then there's a third person who's sort of disgruntled, he becomes a part of the trio, even though he's not really with them. And I don't remember sort of the details that well. But sort of bad things happen, and also stuff to do with horses, and then of course the Mexican stuff, and then sort of the main thing is how will the young, and the center's on a very young person. And one thing I kept forgetting is that it's 20th century, so it's not like old timey. It's more the 20th century, which I know for some people is old timey, but this was even after the war, or maybe. the 40s or 50s, so it's later, I guess. And I kept forgetting that because it just seemed to be, maybe because of Blood Meridian, it seemed to have more of an earlier time feel to it, because it was about horses as opposed to, and then occasionally a car would turn up and be like, where'd this car come from? But that's just me being, because that's what happens when you listen to a book and you're just sort of in the world in that kind of way. But I liked it. I liked all the pretty horses. Yeah, these top ones of the second tier, I like them quite a bit, actually. And so let's see. The next one I also just only listened to, I don't have a copy of it. My first book by Robert Macfarlane, who writes books about all kinds of nature-connected things or how we relate to nature. I think his most recent book is something to do with what is a river a living being, and not a person, or maybe a person. Is the river alive, or something like that? And he wrote a book about language or words, and this was a lovely listen. This was very evocative, very poetic, very sort of to do with the British Isles and with Scotland, because that's what he's doing. It was called The Old Ways. I should tell you what the books are, right? By Robert Macfarlane. And I think it's an early one of his where he has this sort of strange walks all over England and actually other areas of the world, Spain and even Palestine. There's a section where he goes to Palestine. And sort of he seems to be one of these people who collects other very interesting people and is able to give us a sense of how interesting these other folks are, if somewhat eccentric, perhaps like him, all over the world. He's always sort of connecting to other people in a sort of, I'm a traveler and I meet fellow travelers and we connect type way. So one of the sort of, as an introverted person, someone who I could never sort of be, like always making friends in that way everywhere where you go. Sort of, I don't know, maybe he probably knew these people before, but you're not always clear as to how much. And one of the most memorable walks was the one where he goes out into sort of the low tide area where you can go out into the sea on the side of one of the coasts. Because I just listened to it, I'm a bit vague on even where it all took place. And they walk along for quite a ways up to another area where they then go back inland, and there's a sort of sense of, will they make it in time? I don't know why, why would you do that? But it reminds me of, in Germany to the north, they have the same type of area called the Wattenmeer, the low tide area where you can walk out into what will later on, when the tide comes in, be underwater, and that kind of suspense aspect of it. But it's also very like the lights through the fog type thing, and you get a lot of the history of these places, which I'm not doing justice in my review of the book, but I really liked it as a listen too. It's very soothing. So that is number 13. Number 12, I liked a lot, Rose Cottage by Mary Stewart. I like this a lot better than the other Mary Stewart quite a bit better. And that was called, I forget what that, 9 Coaches Waiting. This one I like better. I really like the characterization of this young woman who is a young widow, I guess, and she comes back to find out the secrets of this cottage connected to her family, as I recall. And it has a sense of her coming back from the city to a rural area and reconnecting to the people who are unaware that she's, I think they're unaware that she's well off, and that she's kind of changed, and yet she really rediscovers her love of this area. As always, I'm sort of trying to, the details of the plot have left me a little bit, but I remember that I really liked listening to this mainly, and then also looking in at the book too. This was also a listen, as I recall. I liked it a lot, and then it has the ending. It was a mystery type thing, or there's a mystery of who connected to the main character's mother, and in the end, it's sort of very sweet at the end. I won't give anything away, but it's a warm, cozy, sweet, poignant ending, and a delightful sort of quasi cozy book that I recommend for that reason. But well written and really nice, really well done. That was number 13. No, 12. Sorry, 12. because we're coming into the last one before the top 10. So it's very close to the top 10. It's just really didn't quite make it because of all the other ones being a little bit above it, but it was still at the top of the second tier, and it is The Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. Another Western, sort of takes place in the West, but it focuses French priests, which I really love. I have this thing for, there are so many priests and nuns in what I read, and a lot of French stuff too. So I really like this is a sort of novelistic portrayal of a real people, which is interesting. And it was lovely. It was poetic. It took you away to this other place out there in the west, and how they sort of have to fit in these two French people, and it talks a lot about how they get used to the different cooking because they're French. And this does take place further in the past. So I'm thinking, yeah, 19th century. So this is 19th century, but it is a historical novel because she wrote it later, of course, because she's Willa Cather, not McCarthy, Mercather, just Cather. The only other Willa Cather I read a long time ago is My Antonia, which I loved a lot. And so, yeah, I'm really happy that I did. Basically, this is one where I went around looking for what I have. Both of these were, I have these, but so I want to listen to them so I can read. I was probably reading something long at the same time, like The Deluge or something. And since I'm so slow, it was a way to get another read in. And it was something that I had. And what was interesting is this one does have he's an archbishop, and so he had these great plans for everything, and sort of the construction of cathedrals is a theme too. You know, there's the book lower down, The Pillars of the Earth, which is also about building a cathedral, basically. And this one too, the main guy has this idea of building a cathedral, but I'm trying to remember exactly. This is the downside of listening, is that I don't think they stay with you as much. I'm trying to remember exactly. I'm also sort of wondering about the death stuff. I think it's sort of because how his life peters out in the ending part. But it's basically just not straight up, but it's his life story of how he came to be out in New Mexico. So this is New Mexico. Father Jean-Marie Latour becomes as the apostolic vicar to New Mexico, where he has to sort of find his way through the arroyos and connect to the people there and deal with, as it says here, rebellious priests and his own loneliness. Although you don't get the sense that he's that lonely. Although he gets more lonely when his one fellow who's helping him leaves to sort of do his own thing. Then he gets a little bit lonely, I think. That's true. So yeah, it is a theme. I don't know if I've done that justice, but it was a good one. It was a good one. And so that brings me to the end. Oh my gosh, it's so long. I apologize. How have I squandered this long? I'll put in little timestamps for each of the books, perhaps without the title, so you have to sort of click to see what they are. And I hope everyone's doing well, and I will be back with my top 10 hopefully tomorrow. I want to get these out so that we can move on into the new year and just regular reading and live updates. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.